Move that the question be now put.
Take Grant Robertson.
With Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I want to speak to part 2 in the schedules of this bill, and I actually want to pick up where I left off in part 1, because the same matters are dealt with in the schedules that I was discussing at that point, and that was at the point of exactly what it was that stopped the minister from going with his gut on this bill, from going with what his intuition was that this was the right thing to do. And this is dealt with, Mr. Chair, in the schedules in terms of the zero alcohol limit. And there was an opportunity. Not only was the intuition there for the minister, it was also the evidence that was there. Mr. Henry is not very familiar with evidence, difficult concept for him to grasp, but it's what happens when people actually study things and look at what the situation is in other countries and then come up with the evidence. And the evidence certainly supports this. So the question is then, how do we end up in a situation where the minister doesn't follow through on what he wanted to do? And that question is that Mr. Key clearly got nervous. Mr. Key got nervous and decided that he couldn't go ahead with it. He couldn't go ahead with backing the gut reaction of his minister. And that's incredibly disappointing, Mr. Chair, because on this side of the House, the Labor Party will support this and will support Part 2 because there are things in this bill that are good, because there is a recognition that we need to do more in terms of protecting New Zealanders from those people who drink and drive, and do more to stop people from drinking and driving. It's important. There will be very few members of this House who haven't been affected in some way or other by people who've been involved in drink driving. We need to do more. But the opportunity was on the table for the minister to do it. Darian Fenton's amendments in Part 1 were on the table to do something about it, and the minister bottled. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't go ahead with it. And we see, and it was the article that was in the Herald on Sunday, on the 2nd of January earlier this year, where we actually saw that when John Key got involved, John Key came in and he got nervous. And that's the problem with what happened here. Lack of courage, lack of commitment to actually following through on what the minister knows is right, what Mr. Henare knows is right, what Mr. Bridges knows is right. The right thing to do was here on the table, and it wasn't picked up. And over again, we've seen from the minister this transition from somebody who had a gut feeling that he was doing the right thing. His own experience told him that it was ridiculous. That was his word. It was ridiculous that he could drink as much as he could and still be within the limit. His intuition was right. The evidence backed his intuition, but he bottled it at the end because John Key got nervous. John Key's office was writing directly to officials in the Ministry of Transport, bypassing the minister, writing directly to officials in the Ministry of Transport to see whether or not they were concerned about whether someone who had one glass of wine could go over the limit. And it was an issue that John Key personally was concerned about. That's what his advisor was telling the Ministry of Transport. And in the end, officials were put in a position, even though in the regulatory impact statement, they actually were stating how this could improve New Zealand, could improve social outcomes, could improve economic outcomes, but they bottled it when the Prime Minister came in on the scene. And I think that's incredibly disappointing, because the zero alcohol limits, the things that are coming in these schedules, will do good things. It's not the loony left, Mr. Henry. You're voting for it. You might fit one of those words, but you don't fit the other. But this is actually something that everyone in... thank you. This is actually something that everybody in this House can support. It's an opportunity lost. It's an opportunity lost when people right around New Zealand are looking for politicians to take a leadership role on this issue. They're looking for politicians who actually look at the evidence internationally in New Zealand and say the evidence is there, people actually want this done. And for reasons that go against the intuition of the minister, they go against the evidence that's on the table, but because the Prime Minister got nervous, the Prime Minister got spooked, suddenly we don't have the support for that. And the worry that we have on this side of the House is that we've missed this opportunity now. Everybody in this House, I believe, wanted to do this. The opportunity's gone. And while we have a bill that will do some good things, and therefore we can support it, it misses out on the very, very real possibility of making a major change that will improve the lives of all New Zealanders, and I'm sad that that's happened.
Te ora Flavel.
Tēnā koe